Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee or tea, sit back and relax, and let's chat a bit about what is happening up in the stars today. It is Tuesday, November 19th. I can't even believe we are in the third full week of November, heading into the end of 2019, getting ready and preparing for 2020. Interesting how quickly time flies, right? It's just amazing to me. And here we are today with the moon in the sign of Leo. It is kind of an interesting day to me as I looked at what I wanted to talk about. There were like these little tributaries of a river, different directions that I could flow in today. Interesting because the Pleiadian-Earth energy, the universal energy of the day is 6, which is flow. So as I was thinking about all the different places I could go, I realized that today the planet Jupiter is conjunct the Galactic Center, and Venus and Jupiter are closing in on a conjunction that will occur on Sunday in exactness, but it is already in an applying state, meaning the energies of the two planets are already coming together, and you couple that with the proximity to the galactic center, and what you get is a recipe for magic. You get a recipe for flowing into new areas. So I coupled that then today with looking at the moon. The moon in Leo isn't so special. It's not that. But I checked to see if there was a void of course moon today, and there is. And in the West, for us here on the West Coast, the void begins at 1:11 p.m., 111, and ends at 5:55 p.m., 1:11 p.m. to 5:55 p.m. For you all on the East Coast, it's not quite as magical as that's 4:11 your time and let's see, 8:55 p.m. Your time when it ends. And it ends, of course, with the moon moving into the sign of Virgo, out of the fun and play and creative self-expression of the moon in Leo into the more, now I've got to take it and put it out into the world energies of Virgo. So that's what we're looking at today. So tomorrow will be the first full day of the moon in Virgo. Today we have, for most of the day, the energy of the moon in Leo. And we're sort of left at the end. The last aspect is going to be about the square of the moon to the sun, and that is our crisis of consciousness. So built into the day today is some inborn sort of crisis energy. Now, crisis might be the wrong word to use in this respect, although it often does trigger something deep within you. This is in relation to the new moon cycle, right? The new moon begins. Then a week later, we have the first quarter moon, which is called the crisis of action. Then we have the full moon, the release point, the completion point, the revelation point. Then 1 week later, which is where we are now, we come to the crisis of consciousness, where now there's something that we're running into that's within us that might be stopping us from completing the manifestation or from working with the intention that we started with at the new moon. And then, of course, that leads us to the next new moon, which will be 1 week from today. So we are kind of left then in the waning phase of the moon, and not a good time necessarily to start something new, because we would want to wait now until we get to the energy of the new moon next week. But it is a great time to sort of evaluate what's going on within you that might be stopping you from moving forward, what thoughts are coming up, what old tapes are running in your mind, what old patterns are emerging. And you couple that with some of the energies that we've had flowing through Scorpio that are still in Scorpio, and we have a real ability to tap into and clean out, if you will, the clock, cleaning out whatever's inside of you that does not belong anymore if you want to move on. Then we take the energy of the moon in a trine today to both Venus and Jupiter and the galactic center, and we put in its place the possibility of something new, of something something extraordinary, even of something that allows more light into you and more light out of you. So more magic in equals magic out, right? So there's this flowing energy of potential, even though there may be a crisis point at which you're questioning, am I worthy, right? Am I capable? Am I competent? Am I compromised, right? Have I compromised my values? Have I compromised my ability? And where are you ready to release some of that so that you can come out and play in the world in your fullness? That's the question. Let's say good morning to people who are showing up. Camille, great to see you. Mimi, good morning. Amy, good morning. Camille says, flew by. I know, God, I just can't believe it. Amy Moore says, pretty, thank you. Marisa, good morning. Kristen, good morning. Allison, good morning. Londa, good morning. Angela, good morning. So it's great to see all of you out there this morning. So I was sitting here this morning trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to talk about, because I wasn't sure. There wasn't anything like glaring at me. And then suddenly I just said to, nobody there, said to God, source, creative energy, what do I need to talk about today? And immediately I got this picture of the energies that are building for us right now with this Galactic Center connection. Now, from an astronomical point of view, astronomics, meaning the science of the stars, not the magic that I deal with in astrology, but the science of the stars would tell us that a black hole is a place where even light is swallowed up. We really have no clue what happens after that, right? What happens when the light is swallowed up? It's almost like the Galactic Center is a point at which old information is taken in and new information is spit back out. Only when it comes back out as pure potential, right? It's taken in the light, and the light encodes information, right? In the light are codes. It's like putting a disk in your computer or downloading a program, and in that invisible space are all of the instructions for what your program needs to do, or the potential for the expression of, like, for instance, I have an astrology program downloaded to my computer, and in that is the potential for me to create charts, to create matrices of the days of the month, and information. If I wanted to tune in to specific planets and see what's happening, I could pull out these pieces of information out of this encoded program that I input into my laptop. Well, it's kind of the same thing with the Galactic Center. The Galactic Center is coded with all there is, all and nothing. So, for example, you could think of the light going into the Galactic Center as, I often think of the Galactic Center as sort of the place of the Akashic records, even, or the hall of knowledge, because I think of it as we are creating here on this planet, then transmit that energy outward from ourselves, and in the transmitting of that energy is encoded our own personal light, in the expression of our experiences, of our knowledge, of what we've left undone, of what we want to do still, of the things that we've been successful at, the things that we haven't been successful at, and all of that gets put into the Galactic Center. And then the Galactic Center, if it's the storage space of the universe, is housing all of that information. And then on the other end, it transmits out from its source potential, pure potential, in the codes of things like cosmic rays, gamma rays, neutrinos, and all of these particles, which are so minuscule you really don't even see them, are then showering the rest of the universe with this potential. God, I hope I'm making myself sort of clear here. So you on the planet here are a receiver of this pure potential. So you're picking this up. And then, like anything, a program selects for what it is that it wants to express. So you're taking in all of this potential through light, right? Through particles, wave particles that are potential expression. And then you determine how it is that you want to express that. You choose. What am I going to do with this energy? What am I going to do with this knowledge? What am I going to do with this information? How am I going to take in this info, this light, this code, and then how am I going to express that code back out into the world? It is happening all the time, right? It's happening as a continuous flow of energy that bathes the planet, indeed the entire universe. We just happen to be focused here on this planet in this time. And so we pick this up and then we choose then what we do. Well, on a day like today, and really in this entire week, really, and even into the early part of next week, where powerful planets, Jupiter and Venus, are passing into or across the face of the Galactic Center, it picks up this information and it then acts as a filter or a lens to transmit that energy to us. Now, isn't it interesting in the outer world how chaotic it is at the moment? I mean, things, all kinds of things being said or done, or craziness out there in the world. But right now, the two benefic planets, Jupiter and Venus, these are the two biggies, the two benefics, we call them. The greater benefic is Jupiter and the lesser benefic is Venus. I don't even know why they chose that, because they're both beneficial. They bring us good energies. They're the ones that are passing over the face of the galactic center. It's not Saturn, it's not Pluto. They've already been there, done that. It is the two benefic planets. So we're being set up or encoded with what comes next, with the light of love, the light of peace, perhaps the light of potential. And I found it to be a sort of magical setting. Now let's wax astronomic again for a moment. The planet Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system, in our known solar system. Who knows if there are other ones out there that we might discover at some point in time. But for the moment, Jupiter is our largest planet. And as such, it has a lot of magnetic energy of attraction. And in an astronomical point of view, the planet Jupiter acts almost like a vacuum cleaner, drawing some of the things like asteroids, comets, meteors toward its body. And it is acting then as a sort of protective measure against other planets like Earth being bombarded with asteroids, meteors, and comets. Now, of course, Jupiter can't take it all in. So our planet does at times get hit, has a long history of being hit by asteroids, comets, and meteors, which also, by the way, bring the seeds of potential to the planet. But Jupiter itself acts as a protection, as a magnetic, attractive force, bringing in new energies, taking some of the things that would hit us and create a problem for life on this planet into itself, and where it's harmlessly destroyed in the atmosphere of Jupiter. Now, it's not to say that Jupiter doesn't sustain impacts and things like that. We really don't know, for example, the exact things that happen by an impact with Jupiter. We've seen them, and we also know that Jupiter is highly attractive. Now let's look at Venus for a moment. Venus is often called the sister to the planet Earth. It's very similar in size. It's similar in, they're sort of sisters in mythology. And what we definitely have in Venus is a planet that is doing things differently, right? She spins in the opposite direction of the Earth. She is hotter than the planet Mercury. And there's good evidence by some astronomers and physicists that Venus is actually an interloper here in our universe. She was quite possibly a meteor or an asteroid or a comet that got pulled into orbit in our solar system, as in got caught up in Jupiter's attractive force, got pulled into the universe, or to the Milky Way galaxy via whatever cosmic trail she was on, got caught up in our solar system and became a planet. And there's really good evidence for that in a kind of an alternative scientific view out of the not quite the mainstream view of Venus, but certainly a potential expression, which matches some of the mythologies of her in Babylonian times being Ishtar or Ishtar, and or Inanna. And there are myths that say Inanna, you with terrible light streaking red through the sky and bringing us your wrath. And so there's these mythologies of this cometary body that came into the universe, into our known universe, and set up shop between the earth and the sun. And it's interesting because what she brings is a new sort of role for femininity, right? Not just the receptive, but also the fiery edge, right? The energy of the divine feminine in her glory, not just in her passiveness. And so we have these two benefic planets then, Venus, values and relationships, and Jupiter, which is magnetic and attracts our experiences to us that we need for growth, that are crossing the face of the galactic center, where new energy is sourced to us, where new information is sourced to us. So in a way, are they being encoded with some new sort of energy, some magical expression that we will then absorb, because we are the people we're the antennas, we're the giant receivers bringing this in. Then we take it in and then we mold it. We, maybe you could use the word, translate the energy, the information, and then we become the expressions of this energy. Now, the last time that Jupiter would have crossed the face of the galactic center would have been 12 years ago. And interesting, because at that point in time, what got encoded was the crash of the economic system, right? This was 12 years ago, was the first like inklings that there was a big problem as some of the big financial firms started crashing. The mortgage crisis became very obvious, and one after one throughout 2007 and 2008, businesses began to close up their shops, right? Big companies. And it was the big car industries and all of these things, banks failing. So we took a major economic hit at that time, as perhaps what was being encoded was a new way of being with money, a new way of being in our relationship to money. And now, just because we're encoded with something doesn't mean that we are quite yet ready to express the highest frequency of that energy. So I say that we probably got exposed to what the darkest dark of that energy was, and we're still working then with the appearance of that energy. And I think here we are again with the planet that rules money, Venus, and the planet that rules growth, Jupiter, crossing the face of the galactic center and bringing us the potential for maybe the expression of a new economy, the expression of a new ethics or moral code on the planet. And I use the word moral in a very slippery sort of way, because it is more about a new integrity, perhaps, being encoded here in integrity and ethics through transparency. Transparency. If you look at everything that's going on in the outer world, a lot of the problematic stuff comes from secrets, comes from places where people were hiding the truth, from lies and deceit and delusion, disillusion, create, the scary kind of magic where, watch this over here while over here I'm, creating havoc. So we are waking up, I guess, is the way that I would take this energy with the galactic center and Jupiter and Venus and say, what are we waking up to? What are we waking up to? What are we being implanted with right now? I'm going to take a look and see how comments are running here. Um, Catherine, good morning. Colleen Jackson, good morning. She's on the struggle bus today. I started out on the struggle bus. I'm with you, sister. Colleen McSpirit, good morning. Linda Dennis, good morning. Londa, our antenna is our DNA. Ooh, I like that. Londa says, I'll try writing a brief understanding of that. I'm sure Gene Keys has an understanding of it. And guess what? We're going there this morning. We're going there because the next step in my thought processes, you guys are getting a glimpse into the mind of Janet this morning, is that I go from the idea of, okay, these planets are moving across the face of the galactic center. Now, the galactic center is in a fairly static degree of the zodiac. It moves so slowly that in our lifetimes, it may only ever move maybe a half a degree, because it takes 71 to 72 years for it to move even 1 degree of the zodiac. So, for example, I was born in 1961. It was at 26 degrees late minutes of Sagittarius. As of today, it's only at 27 degrees 8 minutes of, I can't really tell if that's an 8. Yes. It's at Sagittarius, 27 Sagittarius, 7 minutes, 10 seconds. It's not even moved a degree. Well, of course, I'm only in my 50s, so I haven't reached the 70-year mark, but that tells you how slowly this moves through the zodiac. So it's fairly static, and it's fairly static in your chart. So wherever 27 degrees or so of Sagittarius is where your galactic center is. So literally, it doesn't move throughout your life except such a very little, almost imperceptible amount. So it's there telescoping you energy throughout your lifetime from its placement in whatever house it's in. So wherever Sagittarius is in your chart is where this is being sent to you. Then you have planets that are transiting, Venus and Jupiter, transiting across the face of the galactic center. And they're picking up and transmitting that energy back to us here on Earth. So what are they transmitting? That would be the question. So the next thing I look at is the gene keys or a human design, because in that system, I can see the static place that the galactic center has been sitting at. I don't know why I haven't looked at this before. It just didn't occur to me before that the galactic center is likely sitting at the same degree, at the same gate, at the same gene key for most of your life. And the gene key that it's sitting at is the gene key 11, which is about light. It is in its lowest frequency in the shadow, or the fear frequency is its obscurity, where we are unable to see the light. In its gift, it is idealism. It is in an ideal world. Remember last week, I don't know, I was thinking about Jupiter, and maybe, somewhere on the subconscious level, I was also thinking of Jupiter and the galactic center and this gate of light that it is sitting at. In its highest expression, the Siddhi, it is light. So we go from we're taking the path of obscurity to light through idealism. And it is our ability to live from the ideal that is the creative force. So when we tap into what is, and we can see the world right now is very divisive, polarized, crazy. We're on the verge of destroying the planet. We could destroy each other in a moment, in a heartbeat. Just one bomb could destroy, a civilization, basically. So if we tap into that, then we're creating more of that. But if we're tapping into this potential of the light, then we see the potential to express the ideal of what we're looking for. So before I get to the gate 11 or the gene key 11 in our 64 faces, let's talk about the Pleiadian energy of the day, because I think there's something really unique that dovetails here. So yesterday we were in the energy of 5, the universal energy of the day, which no matter what planet you were on in the solar system, you would have been resonant with the energy of 5. Today we are, which was change and transformation. Today we are in the energy of 6, which is the energy of flow. And in the energy of flow, it's very water-like, very air-like. It flows. We're transcending differences by seeking to blend and or merge our energies with the opposite, right? So when we bring the opposite points closer together, we see that there's oneness, that we couldn't have one without the other. And like a river with no boundaries, it recreates itself in response to circumstances. So if the circumstances are of the light, we recreate ourselves in the image of the light. If it is in the dark, we recreate ourselves in the image of the dark. And again, that's all playing with what it is we are focused on, where our attention is flowing. So going with the flow is what we are meant to learn in today's energy. Now, the energy of the earth today is in planting, which in the Mayan calendar was Kan, K-A-N, which was the energy of planting seeds. It's the seed, right? The seed energy. In the previous numbers, we, sort of have this creative impulse, and then we sort of have the preparing of the ground, right? The getting the ground ready. And now we're in the planting phase. We are now putting the seeds in the ground, and where we embed our thoughts as seeds for the future. So let me say that again. We're planting the seed, and where we embed our thoughts, they become seeds for the future. That's pretty heavy when you think. It's not heavy, it's just important. It's really important to think of this. Where we embed our thoughts as seeds for the future. That's the energy of the day. This is a symbol of fertility, and it represents the power of growth. If you plant your seeds in fertile soil, they grow and they produce. If you plant your seeds in dead soil, nothing comes of it. So what kind of soil are you planting your seeds in? What are you growing in light, or are you planting in the dark and don't know exactly what's going to happen from that? So we have a lot of responsibility today in some of the things that we are planting. It's happening now, Allison. Right? She says, "I'm sorry, I missed the timing." Today that Jupiter is conjunct the Galactic Center, and on Sunday Jupiter and Venus will conjunct again, very close to the Galactic Center. So we're talking about now. And we're talking about this now because all three of them, Jupiter, the Galactic Center, and Venus, are sitting at the gate 11 in your human design. I did not pull up a human design chart today, but I'm sure I have one from yesterday that I can show you where the gate 11 is. The gate 11 sits here in the ajna. It is the gate in human design called ideas and inspiration, and it moves from the ajna down to the throat for manifestation. Jupiter is sitting here. Venus will sit there as of tomorrow, and the Galactic Center. So I could put GC here and Venus, because as of tomorrow, Venus will be sitting there. So we have a triple sort of conjunction going on right here at gate 11, which is the gate of light. Right? That's the gate of light, which in its gift is idealism. I'll just leave that there. Now I want to go to our storybook. The storybook. I love this book. Rosie Aronson, if you ever listen to my show again, love you for doing this because this book is fabulous. It is called The Wisdom Keeper's Inner Guidebook, 64 Faces of Awakening. And I want to show you the card 11 for idealism. And, just I don't know what to say about her. She's got a mischievous look in her eyes. She's got a childlike wonder there. She's got a polar bear on her forehead, with the northern sky or the sun, and on her throat, I'm not sure if that's a dove or maybe a phoenix, and she just looks ready for anything. There's kind of an I don't know, just a fairy-like or elemental look to her. Okay, so let's read from the book here. So the only thing needed for magic to occur is some form of structure and an open mind. And we're dealing then with the gift of idealism, the shadow of obscurity, and the city of light. Here's the wisdom story. At home, I was always encouraged to indulge in my imagination. I was constantly dreaming up and acting out stories, and it was wonderful. At school, however, when I got caught staring out the window, I was told to take my head out of the clouds, pay attention, and be realistic. So I quickly learned to keep my fantasies to myself. For a long time, no one knew how little I cared about real life, in quotes, which in comparison to my fantasy life seemed completely devoid of wonder. But my parents sensed something was off. They began to worry. They took me to an even more concerned doctor who prescribed some pills and behavioral techniques to end the delusions and bring me back to the world. For a while, it seemed to work, and I was able to get off the medicine. But slowly, my imagination kicked back in. This time, instead of keeping my dreams to myself, I desperately tried to manifest them. But they could never measure up to my original ideals. Powerless and angry, I tried to push them away again. But this time, the more I tried to bury my fantasies, the darker and more obscure they got. The demons from my dreams became the people I dated. I kept recreating the same awful situations, especially in my intimate relationships. It got so bad, I wanted to escape life entirely. Luckily, I had a dream one night where a polar bear walked right up to me with a golden journal, pen, and paints in his mouth. The next day, I ran to the store and started the first of what would be hundreds of art journals. I drew pictures, wrote poems, and painted all of the feelings and visions I'd been afraid to own. I learned to trust in the images that came to me. Now, I always provide a free-range outlet for my imagination, and I find that just naturally I am embodying and manifesting my deepest dreams. My gift to you. I'm here to remind you of the incredible power and potential of your receptive, abundant, feminine, magical, tribal, dreaming mind. I come to give you permission to play with your right brain with the realms of imagery, archetype, and imagination. Trust that everything in the end is a symbol. Whatever comes to you, please do not judge it or over-identify with it or squeeze it into a preconceived shape. And please don't judge yourself in any way for the unusual or optimistic contents of your imagination. In our modern world, many of us are taught to think of idealists as naive, weak, and deluded people, out of touch with reality. It is true that to manifest itself in the world, idealism needs a structure. But without knowing our ideals or recognizing our dreams, how can we possibly manifest anything of true value? To bring our world back into balance, we need people like you to practice magical realism. I love that. To bring our world back into balance, we need people like you to practice magical realism, where your beautiful, open mind is honored just as much as the logical plans your brilliant left brain might drum up. Questions for contemplation. Do you tend to get too lost in fantasy or not take your dreams seriously enough? Is it time to let go of a fantasy that's been keeping you from living and enjoying your actual life? Is it time to take an old, perhaps forbidden or unrealistic dream out of the closet and give it expression? Find a light totem that holds an energy of one of your deepest dreams or ideals. Find a way to wear it or carry it so you can have it with you for as long as you want. The end of that one. So light, right? Light. Gate number 11. So if you have the Gene Keys book, it's worth it right now to take a look and read through what the Gene Key 11 brings us, right? In the repressive nature in this particular Gene Key, it is about fantasizing. It is about becoming so inured in the fantasy that you can't bring anything out into reality. In the reactive nature, it's delusion. It's being deluded. And, here's an interesting thing. I was having a conversation with someone the other night, and this person was telling me about how they just keep feeling like they need to go out and buy more and more stuff. And I asked the person what void they were filling. And I said, is it possible that you've forgotten the magical, and by buying things, you're tapping into something that's helping you fill that empty space? And the person looked at me and said, well, I live in a real world, so I have to have a real job that pays real money. And who cares if I like it or not? It is what pays the bills. And God, I just felt the stab of sadness in that. And sadder yet, because it was one of my own children telling me this. And I just I didn't even know what to say at this point, because, I raised my children with metaphysics, right? They were all raised with this, with astrology, maybe not all of their lives, but astrology, oracle cards, going to metaphysical fairs. I owned a metaphysical business. So they were sort of they grew up with this. But this one just decided to live in the real world. And I could have said a number of things at that point in time, and I just didn't. I left it empty because he's here to live his own life. He has to find his own way. And my suggestion was he looked at what it was he was trying to fill in that void. And I know he'll take it and he'll run with it and he'll look at that. I don't know what he will will he bring it back to me and say something? I don't know. But it just gave me a pang of deep sadness that what we do to our children by sending them to an educational system is teach them that what's important is going out, getting a job, and economically participating in this world. And that likely the best thing to do is to find a job that pays well. And I did ask him the question, what would you do? What would you really love to be doing? He couldn't tell me that because it just doesn't matter, Mom. I have to do what I need to do to earn money. And he makes good money doing what he does. But it just kills me to think he's making good money doing something that he doesn't really love. And he's only 27, 28. So we all have our path to the light. But question yourself, what if you find yourself in a position of filling up the void, what are you filling it with and why? Right? What's in that void? And as we talked about, so there's nothing wrong with the void. Out of the void comes creation. So I don't know. I don't even know why I brought that up, except I thought idealists do get a bad rap, right? Because they become the dreamers, and maybe they don't create in the same way that somebody does when they go out and they just engage in the real world. But there's got to be more to life than just the real world. Otherwise, why would we have dreams? Why would we have fantasies? Why would we have imagination? Why would your human design and the human design year begin at the gate of creative imagination and fantasy? That's where the year begins. Gate 41, which is in the root center. The very lowest center is the root center. Now, what did I do with that chart? The root center right here. Here's gate 41, and that's the beginning of the human design year. Fantasy and imagination. And if you can't see yourself as anything other than a robot working in a real world, making money to pay your bills, that's going to be a very narrowed life. So anyway, taking a look at comments here. Amy, the mind of Janet is awesome. Yes, some days I'm on a roll. You're right. Amy, Sag is my IC. Makes sense. My foundation is a black hole. My life is explained. Hallelujah. Right? Your life is a black hole, and out of that black hole comes so much potential. And what do you want to do with it? That's the question. What do you want to do with it? Marissa, I am struggling to understand the Galactic Center. Is there a class in your membership program? No, but that gives me a great idea, Marissa. In fact, this morning, I don't know what it is about putting on mascara that causes getting in the shower or putting on mascara that causes my mind to start thinking and, or, imagining maybe. I was thinking about that in terms of the gene keys and looking at them in a deeper manner, but I am loath to go one by one by one. I don't want to do that, go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. But I thought it would be fun to go based on what some of the major transits are that are happening. For example, our focus this morning on the gate 11 or the gene key 11, because there's so much energy of light right now, right there at our fingertips. So it's a distinct possibility. The Galactic Center is just one piece of a big, gigantic puzzle, but it does happen to be the place where a lot of extraordinary potential comes to us, where we act as the antenna to pick it up and then to express it and bring it into reality. Other than that, there isn't much more that I can say, except look to where it is in your chart, and that's where there is a well of creative energy waiting to be expressed, right? Waiting to be expressed. And we could look at it house by house, right? We could and say, okay, well, what is it that you're resonating with? What new eggs of potential lie within you in the house that it's sitting at? So wherever Sagittarius is, Marissa, in whatever house 27 Sagittarius is, to be more precise, is where you have the potential of bringing in the light from the information coded in you from the Galactic Center and bringing it into the world. I think for me, it is in the energy of the gate I think it's in the 5th house. Yes, the 5th house of children, of love, of romance, of creativity, of joy, of bliss. Yay. So I get to bring that to you. That's my job. And the gate 11 actually is my earth. My conscious earth in my human design. So it's also important to me personally. And in my covenant with being a Gene Keys ambassador, we each had to choose 3 gene keys that we would focus on. That would be the energy that we wanted to bring into the planet. And I chose 11 and 22 and 55. Imagine that. I chose double numbers, master numbers. So 11, 22, and 55 I'm just drawn to those 3. And here we get an opportunity to focus on the 11. It's kind of magical in my mind. Amy, love that gift. Amy, Saturn returns soon. Maybe his will end like mine with him quitting that unfulfilling job. And periodically, Amy, he'll call me and he'll say, Mom, will you look at my chart and tell me what's going on in my career? It's so funny because Mr. Realism wants me to look at his chart. And I always will tell him, I always look at it and I say, what is it that you would really love to be doing? And then he tells me that that's not important. So he's a little bit at war with himself. He is a little bit at war, and that's okay because I'm here for him when he decides he really needs to move through that. Marisa, okay, I'll take a look. You're welcome. And Allison, I think mine is in the 6th house. So bringing light into your environment, into the workplace, into the people that you work with. Marissa, also, I understand what your son is saying about the real world, been looking at areas of void in my life. And I get it too. I get it. I get it because in the time that he was a teenager is when I opened up the business the metaphysical business. And it took a lot of my time and a lot of my attention away from him. And I think maybe he views then idealism as a loss for him. And I can't help him with that one, until he really is ready to look at that and face it. But on some level, I get what he's doing and I understand. And now he has his own son, and that becomes important for him to be able to provide a good life for that child. So I get it. But a life without magic is, or without, the imagination and the fantastical, is a life barren. It's very one-sided. We need both. what was that? What was that phrase? Magical realism. Uh, Hold on, gonna get it back up because I want to make sure I remember that phrase. Gate 11. Okay, it is magical realism. Magical realism. Write that down. Magical realism. So contemplate that. Magical realism. Then that would speak to me of the blending of both hemispheres of the brain, right? The the balance point between the creative mind and the expressive mind, the realistic side of things, the logical mind. Okay, Colleen, same here. I think it's a common theme. It is a common theme. You know why it's a common theme? Because we send our kids to school. And in school, other than maybe a creative writing class, they're not really they're not really encouraged to express their fantasy world or their idealism. They're taught facts and figures and right from wrong and a very narrow band of expression. They're really, a little, there's this school where these little magical beings go in one door and come out magical robots. And, right? I'm not here to say that isn't, that it's a problem. I don't know how we solve that problem. I think we solve that problem via the way that we're going to solve the bigger problems in the world with the individuals, with the teachers that are teaching the material to the children. Of course, they need to know how to read and write and do math and how to calculate and how, about science and all of that. But the way you teach each of those subjects can be more magically inclined, right? We can show children that imagination, that even a scientific discovery begins in the imagination, right? You don't think Albert Einstein just brought these things because he had some like rule book here that says do it this way. No, he often stared into the light of a flame in a meditative state and brought forth these fantastical things. Think about Da Vinci. Talk about magical realism, right? Here's this man 500 years before his time drawing pictures of helicopters and airplanes and UFO looking type things, that the people of his time must have been like, whoo, he's out there. Come back to the earth, Da Vinci, put your feet back on the ground, be real. That stuff doesn't exist, but it does exist because in someone's imagination, it began. So we can't discount the magical in favor of realism, nor can we discount realism in favor of just the magical. Magical realism, that's going to be my new catchphrase, magical realism, as good as know thyself. Magical realism. Okay, Amy, I agree. And when parents support the school over the child, they have no support for their dreams. I agree. It is all about the teacher. I think a little magic should be a job requirement. I was reading an article, or no, it was a news story on NPR this morning about where were the schools? Was this in North Carolina, Iowa, Ohio, Indiana? It was in Indiana, where teachers are going on strike or preparing for a strike because they want more money. And they don't want that more money tied to these test scores and sort of like, getting a spiff for your class doing better on the test, which means then that teachers are being asked to teach to a test and not teach to the, broadness of a subject. And I think that we ought to be thanking those teachers who bring imagination into a classroom, because when a child's imagination is stimulated, then they are more interested in the subject and they will learn faster. You can't just expect, I don't know how you bring magic to math, but there are ways. Oh my gosh, when I was a kid, I had this series of encyclopedias. This is where I first found numbers and learned all about the magic of some of the numbers, like the number 9. And to learn your multiplication tables with the number 9, you multiply it by, let's say you wanted to know what 9 times 5 was. Well, the answer 45 is going to add up. Those two digits are going to add up to 9. So every answer 9 times something was going to add up to 9. and or be reducible to 9. So even 9 times 11, which is 99, is 9 plus 9, which was 18. 1 plus 8 is 9 again. And to me, it was like, whew, suddenly I was interested in multiplication, right? And the threes, and I mean, all of the numbers have the sort of magical quality to it. So you can teach math in a magical way. It doesn't have to be all facts and figures, right? I just think that the education system is not necessarily, I think the teachers in the system are awesome, and that they would teach, if they were left to their own devices without the need to have to teach to a test, to have to have scores that are above a certain number, that magic could happen in the classrooms. And I've seen teachers who had magic happening in their classroom. There was this one teacher who was also a friend of mine. She taught my daughter and one of my granddaughters. And then she just recently passed away, and it was really so sad. But she brought music to the classroom. And she was a regular teacher. She was third, fourth grade teacher. And everything was musical, right? There was music about cleaning up the classroom. There was music in getting ready to do math homework. There was music about everything. And kids respond. They loved her. They loved being in her class. She was also the music teacher. So they loved, all the kids got exposed to this woman. And God help me, we need more of hers, of her style, whether it's music or magic or art or beauty or color, bringing in those qualities, teaching kids that there is something more than just the real world of facts and figures, which seems kind of boring to them. Yeah. Camille says, exactly. Without imagination, we would still be living in caves. Exactly. So, alrighty. Well, we've crossed into some really interesting territory today. And I love the freedom to be able to do that. And if you guys have other things you want to talk about, you can always let me know that. Go to my website, www.living-astrology.com. Up at the very tip-top corner it says Janet at living-astrology.com. You can click on that and email me ideas, things that you want to know about, or you can just let me keep going free range here, because I like that too. But sometimes it's nice to know what you want to hear about as well. Don't forget, you can now purchase your seat at the webinar for Astrology of 2020. It is on the Living Astrology Facebook page. It is also on my website. A newsletter will go out this weekend with that information in it as well. You can pay $25 to go to the webinar, or if you are a member of the Academy membership, you get to see it for free, but you still need to register. Let me know what you want to do if you want to attend, and I can even talk with you a little bit about what your options are. Oh, let's see what else is going on. I think that is it for me today. I will see you all tomorrow morning. Tomorrow we have Mercury moving out of retrograde. That'll be something fun for us to talk about. And what might we expect as Mercury retraces the ground, that for the third time actually, that it was already in one time before. All right, guys, have a great day. See you later. Bye-bye.